Some of my favorite childhood memories was spent in a tent. I love going camping. But the worst part about camping when I was a kid was packing it all up and going home. Happened every year. Tents are meant to be temporary. Tent dwelling can be fun, it can be exciting. You can even jazz it up and make it feel more like home. You can bring couches and chairs and tables, and even stoves and air conditioners or whatever. But you know what? It's still a tent, and eventually you're going to pack it all up and you have to go back home. An author once wrote this. He says, it's fun to go camping in a tent, but let's face it, it's not home. It's no fireplace, no cozy chair, no soft bed. It's cold in the winter, hot in the summer, and leaky when it rains. And the older it gets, the more it sags, and eventually it frays and tears, and finally it rots. I've been reminded in the last few months that this world is not my home, that I'm just a tent-dwelling pilgrim passing through this world. And it reminds me of what Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, where the tent maker compares this body to a tent. He says, for we know that if our earthly house, this tent, is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. And so he compares this physical body to a tent. In fact, that is temporary. That is not settled. It's not fixed. There's no foundation. It's not permanent. We're just passing through. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were all tent dwellers in the land of Canaan. The Israelites were tent dwellers in the land in the wilderness. They were pilgrims and nomads. They were just passing through, looking for a more permanent dwelling. But thankfully, Paul says that if this tent is torn down, we have a building that's from God. And so someone wrote that while a tent is a temporary house for a traveler, a building is a permanent home for a resident. He's talking about our resurrection bodies, the same ones he was talking about in 1 Corinthians chapter 15. And so while we have these tents, these physical bodies here that are just temporary, we also will have in the resurrection a spiritual body that will be given to us by the Lord, a building. And Paul goes on to say that those who belong to the Lord ought to long for that day. We groan while we're here in these tents, longing to be further clothed. Not because what we have is so horrible, but because what we're going to be given is just going to be so much better. Especially in view of the fact that while we're here in these tents, we're absent from the Lord. But when we're there in our resurrection bodies, we're going to be present with the Lord for eternity. And so while we can't see any of this, we walk by faith. We trust God that it's true. And even while we're suffering, we understand that that suffering can't even be compared, can't even be on the same scales as the glory that will be revealed within us. And everything that we do while we're here in this tent is going to be the basis of our judgment as we stand before Christ. There's nothing that we can do after we die that will ever change that verdict. And so what does that all mean for us now? Well, it means that if we want to be with the Lord for eternity, beginning at the resurrection, we need to make it our aim, as Paul says. We need to make it our goal, our focus, to be pleasing with the Lord while we're here in these tents.